A cocky MMA fighter, with cameras rolling, publicly humiliated a quiet older man in the gym. He had no idea he was mocking Jason Statham, and the price for that lesson was about to be paid in front of the world. The Forge Fitness Club unlocked its doors at 5 a.m., but he was always there by 4:45. In the pre-dawn quiet, he was a shadow slipping through the entrance, a ghost in the machine. No one paid him much mind at first. He was just another shape in the dim light, a man in his mid-50s, with a close-cropped haircut dusted with silver and the kind of sharp, focused eyes that seemed to see everything and reveal nothing. He wore understated, high-end training gear, black Lululemon compression pants and custom-made boxing shoes that were worn but immaculately kept. He didn't grunt or roar like the powerlifters, nor did he shout motivational cliches like the personal trainers. He simply nodded once at the night shift kid, who was too absorbed in his phone to notice the sheer presence of the man who walked past. He moved with a lethal economy of motion, each step deliberate, each turn precise. He wasn't there to prove a point. The Forge was a temple of noise and ego. It was a place where aspiring fighters and influencers clashed, where the clang of weights was a war cry and every drop of sweat was a performance for the camera. Reputations were built on decibels and bravado. But this man, he operated on a different frequency. He claimed the heavy bag in the far corner, away from the prime spots under the best lighting. The mat beneath it was scuffed, the nearby mirror perpetually fogged from the lack of ventilation, but it was a pocket of solitude. He'd unroll his hand wraps with a practiced, almost surgical calm. His movements weren't slow, just brutally efficient. When he shadowboxed, it was a terrifying display of controlled violence. There were no wild swings, no wasted energy. Every jab snapped the air with a percussive crack, every hook pivoted from a core of solid steel, every foot shift was perfectly balanced. It wasn't boxing, it was combat science. It looked less like a workout and more like a rehearsal for something deadly. Whispers started after a few days. A young boxing prospect, watching him between sets, muttered to his coach, "That old guy's form is insane. Is he a coach for one of the pro teams?" The coach just squinted, a puzzled look on his face. "Never seen him. But his footwork, that's military grade." They didn't know his name, so they gave him a nickname, the Ghost. It wasn't just how he trained, it was his entire demeanor. He never checked his phone. He never wore earbuds. He never lingered. He would finish his session, wipe down his station with meticulous care, and vanish back into the morning darkness just as the sun began to rise. He was a self-contained storm of discipline in a sea of chaotic ambition. That morning, the quiet was shattered. The front doors of the Forge flew open with a dramatic bang, as if kicked in by a SWAT team. In walked Leo, the Lion, Vance. He wasn't just a fighter, he was a brand, a walking, talking spectacle of modern fame. At 24, he was a whirlwind of flashy tattoos, bleached blonde hair, and an ego that entered the room 5 seconds before he did. He was draped in a ridiculously bright, sponsored Venom tracksuit, the kind designed to be seen from space. Behind him, his entourage scurried like pilot fish around a shark. 2 of them hauled professional-grade camera equipment, complete with a boom mic and portable lighting rigs. A third was already live-streaming to Leo's massive social media following, narrating his every move. "The Lion is in the building." Leo roared, his voice echoing off the high ceilings. He strutted toward the center of the gym, soaking in the few heads that turned his way. Time to feed the beast. The atmosphere in the Forge instantly shifted. The ambient noise of clanking metal and rhythmic grunts was now punctuated by Leo's loud commands to his crew. "Get the lighting right, numbnuts. I need to look like a god, not a ghost." A few of the gym regulars rolled their eyes, but most just tried to ignore him. Leo's presence was an invasive species, it choked out the natural environment. He was filming a "Day in the Life" segment for his energy drink sponsor, and the entire gym was his unwilling set. His eyes scanned the floor, not looking for a piece of equipment, but for a stage. He found it, the center row of heavy bags, perfectly positioned for the camera's wide-angle shot. It was his prop, his throne. Except, someone was using it. Liam, the ghost, was there, a blur of controlled motion. Cross, hook, weave, pivot. His breath was the only sound he made, a steady rhythm against the thud of his gloves hitting the leather. Leo stopped dead in his tracks, a frown creasing his brow. He turned to his cameraman. "Who the hell is that?" he muttered, loud enough for half the gym to hear. The man was older, his physique lean and compact, not bulky. His movements were clean, efficient, and utterly devoid of the theatrical flair Leo relied on. And that, more than anything, seemed to annoy Leo. It was an affront to his entire philosophy of performance. He swaggered over, his crew trailing behind him, the camera lens zooming in. "Morning, Grandpa," Leo said, his voice dripping with condescending charm. "Didn't know they were holding the Senior Olympics here today." Liam finished his combination, his glove landing with a final, definitive thud. He slowly turned his head, his sharp eyes meeting Leo's for a brief, unreadable moment. There was no anger, no surprise. It was the calm gaze of a man assessing a minor, predictable obstacle. Then, he turned back to the bag. That silent dismissal was like gasoline on a fire. Leo scoffed, then picked up his own gym bag and casually tossed it onto the bench right beside Liam, invading his personal space. He then unwrapped a fresh, sweat-damp towel from his neck and, with a flick of his wrist, tossed it contemptuously onto the top of Liam's moving heavy bag. "Mind making some room, Pops?" Leo sneered. "Some of us are still building an empire." Liam stopped. He didn't look at Leo. He simply reached up, plucked the damp towel from the bag, folded it with unnerving precision, and placed it on the bench next to Leo's bag. He didn't say a word. The act of quiet, deliberate respect was more infuriating to Leo than any curse could have been. "Oh, he's tidy." Leo laughed, turning to his camera with a wide, mocking grin. "We got a real gentleman here, folks. Probably irons his track pants." His crew snickered on cue. Liam, ignoring the circus, simply moved to an adjacent bag and resumed his workout. Same rhythm, same focus, same deadly efficiency. But Leo wasn't done. He was a predator who had found his prey, and the cameras were rolling. He followed Liam, his own gloves now on, and began to mimic him. It was a cruel, exaggerated parody. As Liam executed a flawless duck and weave, Leo would stumble around like a drunk, flailing his arms and making cartoonish wheezing sounds. "Careful now," he shouted for his audience. "Don't want to break a hip. This is a combat zone, not a Tai Chi retreat for retirees." Laughter rippled through the gym. It wasn't universal, but it was loud enough. No one stepped in. The silent man, after all, was an unknown. Leo was a star, a bully with a blue checkmark next to his name. Liam continued to train, his face an unreadable mask of calm, his focus seemingly unbreakable. He wiped a bead of sweat from his brow, his breathing the only thing betraying the intense effort. His silence was a wall, and Leo was determined to smash it. Then, he crossed a line. As Liam bent down to adjust the wrap on his shoe, Leo saw his chance for the ultimate humiliation. He peeled off his own glove liner, a thin piece of fabric soaked through with an hour's worth of sweat, and held it between his thumb and forefinger. With a flick, he sent it flying across the small gap between them. It landed with a soft, wet slap squarely on the back of Liam's exposed neck. The gym went still. The sound of a dropped dumbbell echoed like a gunshot in the sudden silence. The laughter died in people's throats. It was a deeply personal, invasive act of disrespect. Leo laughed, a harsh, ugly sound. "Whoops," he said, feigning surprise. "My bad. Thought I saw a piece of trash that needed cleaning up." Liam stood up slowly. His movements were still controlled, but something in the air had changed. The temperature in the corner of the gym seemed to drop by 20 degrees. He didn't turn around. He simply reached back, plucked the sweaty liner from his neck, and held it in his hand without looking at it. He then turned, his face utterly devoid of emotion, and walked the 2 steps toward Leo. He held out the liner. "You dropped this," he said. His voice was low, gravelly, and carried a chilling flatness. It was the first time anyone had heard him speak. Leo, emboldened by his own audacity, snatched the liner back. "He speaks," he roared triumphantly to his camera. "Careful, old-timer, you might pull a muscle with all that heat." He then turned his full attention to Liam, his eyes glinting with malice. "You know what? I'm feeling generous. Let's give the old man his 15 minutes of fame. Me and you. 1 minute. If you're still standing when the bell rings, I'll have my sponsor send you a lifetime supply of protein powder. For your pension." A circle formed instantly, drawn by the magnetic pull of an impending car crash. Phones emerged from pockets, their red recording lights blinking like predatory eyes in the dark. The air crackled with anticipation. Leo bounced on the balls of his feet in the center of the hastily cleared mat space, a cocky, self-satisfied smirk plastered across his face. This was content gold. He was about to clown some anonymous old man live for his hundreds of thousands of followers. Liam stepped onto the mat. There was no ceremony, no warm-up, no change in his expression. He wore the same focused, almost detached look he had while training. He looked less like a man about to fight and more like a surgeon about to perform a delicate, necessary procedure. He picked up a pair of worn sparring gloves from the side, slipping them on with an ease that spoke of a lifetime of practice. The gym's on-duty trainer, a burly man named Dave, stepped forward, looking deeply uncomfortable. 1 minute, he announced, his voice uncertain. Light contact only. He looked at Liam, a question in his eyes. You good with that, sir? Liam gave a single, curt nod. Dave hesitated, then stepped back. Begin. Leo exploded into motion. He came in fast and flashy, a flurry of jabs, showy footwork, and loud, theatrical breaths. It was all for the camera. Liam didn't move an inch. He just watched, his head tilted slightly, his eyes tracking every feint, every shift of weight. He wasn't dodging, he was downloading data. Leo's hook sliced through the air, aimed for Liam's head. Just as it was about to connect, Liam's left hand came up. It didn't block the punch, it parried it, a subtle tap on Leo's forearm that redirected the blow's momentum. The punch sailed harmlessly past his ear. Thrown off balance by his own force, Leo stumbled forward a step. The gym was silent. Regrouping, Leo threw a harder, faster combination, right cross, left hook to the body. Liam didn't retreat. He took a half step forward, inside Leo's punching arc, and pivoted. The punches glanced off his shoulders. As he pivoted, Liam's right glove shot out, not a punch, but a hard, percussive tap, connecting precisely with Leo's exposed ribs. It made a sound like a hammer hitting a side of beef. Leo let out an involuntary grunt of pain and surprise, his breath hitching. It wasn't a hit, but it was a message. The smirk on Leo's face vanished, replaced by a flash of genuine anger. The light contact rule was forgotten. He swung wildly, a haymaker aimed at taking Liam's head off. And then it happened. As the punch came, Liam moved with a speed that seemed impossible for a man his age. He didn't duck under it. He flowed with it, slipping inside the arc of the punch. In one fluid motion, his left hand came up and cupped the back of Leo's head, while his right hand shot forward, not as a fist, but as an open palm. The palm stopped exactly 1 inch from Leo's throat. The entire gym held its breath. Liam hadn't thrown a single punch. He hadn't needed to. He had effortlessly navigated a storm of aggression and now held Leo's life, metaphorically, in his hand. He was in a position of absolute, undeniable dominance. He leaned in, his face inches from Leo's, his sharp eyes boring into the younger man's. "We're done here," he whispered, his voice a blade of ice. He let go. Leo, frozen in a state of shock and adrenaline, stood there, his chest heaving. The bell for the end of the minute rang, a shrill, pathetic sound in the deafening silence. Liam turned his back and walked off the mat, already unstrapping his gloves as if nothing had happened. The lesson was over. The silence that followed was heavier than any weight in the gym. Leo stood alone in the center of the mat, his face a canvas of confusion, humiliation, and dawning horror. He hadn't been beaten, he had been dismantled. His entire identity, built on a foundation of filmed aggression and loud bravado, had been surgically deconstructed in 60 seconds without a single punch being landed on him. His entourage was frozen. The cameraman slowly lowered his rig, avoiding eye contact. The guy who had been live-streaming had quietly ended the broadcast, his face pale. The spectacle was over, but the consequences were just beginning. Suddenly, Leo's phone, lying on a bench nearby, began to vibrate violently, buzzing against the wood like a trapped insect. Then another phone, belonging to his manager who was part of the crew, started ringing. Then another. It was a digital cascade of panic. Leo stumbled off the mat and snatched up his phone. He answered it, his hand trembling slightly. "What?" he barked into the receiver. The voice on the other end was frantic, a torrent of words that the silent Jim couldn't hear. But they could see the effect. The color drained from Leo's face. His eyes widened in disbelief, then terror. "What do you mean the video is everywhere?" he stammered, his voice cracking. "Which video?" "The live stream was, wait, someone else filmed it." He listened, his jaw slackening. Who did you say he is?" No, that's not possible. He's just some old." Leo's voice trailed off. He leaned against a rack of dumbbells for support, the phone slipping from his grasp and clattering to the floor. His manager, white as a sheet, hung up his own call and rushed over. "Leo," he hissed, his voice a panicked whisper. That wasn't just some guy. That was Liam Turner. The name meant nothing to most of the gym-goers. But to the manager, and now to Leo, it meant everything. "He's not a fighter," the manager continued, his voice shaking. "He's the guy who trains the fighters. For the movies. He was the lead stunt coordinator and fight choreographer for the entire Havoc franchise. He's the man who made it star a believable action hero. He's a legend." The truth landed in the gym like a bomb. It wasn't a celebrity sighting. It was an encounter with a master, a ghost from the hidden world of action filmmaking who had just been treated like a nobody. Leo's manager grabbed his arm. "Venom just called. They're pulling your sponsorship. They said the footage of you disrespecting a legend is a PR nightmare. The energy drink company is calling an emergency meeting. Leo, you're toxic." The identity wasn't revealed by a famous friend. It was revealed by the cold, brutal mechanics of the industry. It was a professional execution, delivered by phone call. Leo Vance, the self-proclaimed lion, had been devoured not by a punch, but by his own colossal ignorance. The next morning, the forge felt different. The usual cacophony of grunts and crashing weights was replaced by a low, focused hum. The music was softer. The preening in front of the mirrors was gone. The energy had shifted from performance to purpose. Leo was there, in a far corner, away from the main floor. He wore a plain gray hoodie, no logos, no entourage. He was just a guy, training quietly, his face set in a grim line. Then, at 4:45 a.m. sharp, the door opened. Liam walked in. Same understated gear, same purposeful stride. As he walked toward his usual corner, a path cleared for him. No one spoke. They just moved aside, their heads nodding in a silent gesture that was more profound than any apology. It wasn't fear. It was pure, undiluted respect. Liam's eyes briefly met Leo's across the gym floor. There was no triumph in his gaze, no, I told you so. There was nothing. He simply looked away and continued to his station, the moment passing without a word. For Leo, that silent dismissal was the final, crushing blow. A young, wary boxer who had witnessed the whole event approached Liam hesitantly between sets. "Mr. Turner," he began, "I just wanted to say, that was..." Liam paused his workout and looked at the kid. "Just training," he said, his voice neutral. He then pointed to the kid's footwork. "You're dropping your heel on your jab. It's telegraphing the punch." He demonstrated the correct movement once, a swift, almost invisible pivot. "Feel it. Don't think it." The kid's eyes widened. He nodded vigorously. "Yes, sir. Thank you, sir." What happened in that gym wasn't just a story about a bully getting his comeuppance. It was a lesson in the vast difference between perceived power and actual strength. Leo's power came from cameras, from likes, from noise. Liam's strength was internal, forged in decades of discipline, invisible to anyone looking for a spectacle. True power doesn't need to announce itself. It just shows up early, does the work, and walks away before the applause ever begins. Have you ever met someone whose quiet confidence and skill commanded more respect than the loudest person in the room? Share your story in the comments below, and if you believe that true strength is measured in actions, not announcements, comment respect. And for more stories that uncover the hidden power of discipline, make sure to subscribe and share.